出国是一条不归路，奉劝大家谨慎出国。
I advise everyone to be cautious about going abroad. Everyone I know who went abroad initially said they would only work there for 2 to 3 years and then return. However, almost none of them ever went back. Some stayed for 8 or 10 years, others for 15 or even 20 years. I know people who have stayed for that long. Firstly, the domestic environment has indeed not been very good in recent years, and wages are relatively low. Secondly, wages abroad are slightly higher than in China. People also adapt to the environment and pace abroad. Therefore, everyone must be cautious when considering going abroad. One of the many headaches facing the CCP right now is the massive capital flight. Bloomberg reported that monitoring agencies estimate China's total capital outflow, including official, private, offshore, and shadow channels, has reached approximately $1 trillion USD in 2025, the largest single-year outflow since records began in 2006, with the core destinations being the US and Hong Kong markets. What are the CCP's countermeasures? One of them is tightening control over passports. This control is so strict that it has angered ordinary Chinese citizens. In this episode, we'll focus on this issue. In China, it is already common practice to require party and government officials and executives of state-owned enterprises to hand over their passports. Travel restrictions targeting ethnic minorities and politically sensitive individuals have also been long-standing. Now, this kind of control is gradually extending to private technology companies and high-skilled professionals, and even ordinary citizens. Why? Because CCP officials at all levels adhere to the same principle: security, ensuring the security of their own positions. They would rather expand their jurisdiction and impose excessive management controls than risk their positions due to 1 or 2 oversights. Therefore, the control over passports escalates layer by layer, reaching the grassroots level, where it becomes outrageous. Brothers, did you encounter that hat uncle who won't renew your passport? Just because you did a trivially bad thing abroad. When your passport expires, they say you have a bad record abroad and they'll restrict your entry and exit, refusing to renew your passport. Let me tell you, this is a typical case of power abuse. The passport law clearly states, as long as you meet the requirements, you can get a passport. Unless any department determines that you pose a threat to national security, the police have no right to refuse to renew your passport. If he refuses, it's a typical case of administrative inaction, directly confirming that the hat uncle is guilty of administrative inaction and illegality. Do you understand? As early as 2003, in China, people involved in state secrets or holding high-ranking positions were required to declare their travel plans abroad in advance. Border inspection departments kept their lists to prevent them from leaving the country without permission. Now, this system has extended to lower-level staff, such as teachers and nurses, who are also subject to restrictions. Haven't you applied for a passport yet? If you haven't, hurry up and get one. Many places now require an invitation letter before processing your passport. Although applying for a passport is a citizen's right, it's becoming increasingly difficult in many provinces. So stop complaining about visas. Many people can't even get their passports, or their employers take them away. If you have the ability and resources, be aware of this. I also suggest everyone get a passport from another country as a backup. Citizens have the freedom to enter and leave the country. Why is the policy distorted for frontline teachers? I know some young teachers who bring their experience from abroad back to school, making the classroom more interesting and broadening students' horizons. What a wonderful and meaningful thing. But why do ordinary teachers have to hand in their passports? Going abroad requires an application and layers of approval. We're neither leaders nor personnel with access to classified information. So why is going abroad so difficult? I really don't understand. Why aren't teachers allowed to post photos of their summer vacations on WeChat Moments? Does being a teacher these days mean we ordinary people don't even have the right to share our lives normally? No wonder everyone says the teaching profession is sacred. We just have to endure unfair treatment. They even say that posting photos of sightseeing on WeChat Moments during summer vacation might offend parents and lead to complaints. Are parents really that petty? We are real people, not propaganda tools for the school. Wouldn't showing our true selves bring us closer to the female parents? I think we should post photos of our summer vacations on WeChat Moments. After a whole semester, we've been treated like a propaganda tool. Are there any friends from Shandong? Friends from Shandong, tell me, is it really that difficult in Shandong now? We received a client from Shandong these past 2 days. He's a teacher and he said his passport has to be surrendered. He can't even keep it. Why do they feel so nervous around teachers? Across China, various regions are continuously strengthening regulations on public officials' contact with foreigners. Some places have begun requiring kindergarten teachers, doctors, government outsourced personnel, and state-owned enterprise employees to surrender their passports. Some cities even stipulate that retirees must wait 2 years to retrieve their documents. In a public primary school in southern China, the teacher's employment contract clearly states, unauthorized travel abroad without the school's approval may be considered a disciplinary violation and lead to dismissal. In many regions, public officials must obtain prior approval even for private travel abroad. Official overseas trips under the guise of routine research and exchange learning have been completely halted.
去办护照不给办理有办法吗?
Is there any way to get a passport if they refuse to process it? Regarding passports, if you are from a sensitive region, applications are currently not accepted. However, if you transfer your household registration to another province, you can apply. If you are traveling for tourism, you need a travel certificate from a travel agency, or if you are going abroad for work, you need a certificate from a qualified labor service company, which is also acceptable. A nurse in Zhejiang province said that going abroad requires 4 levels of approval. Although she always wanted to visit Vietnam, she never submitted an application because it was too much trouble. She believes these regulations seem to suggest that the authorities are worried that ordinary employees might also abscond with sensitive information or illicit funds. But she scoffed at this. Think about it, what secrets could possibly be in the hands of people like us? As for embezzling funds, what money do we have? But the CCP doesn't see it that way. To some people holding traditional Chinese cultural views, the CCP is a specter from the West. The Communist Manifesto also acknowledges itself as a specter. This specter is characterized by envy and hatred. It essentially hates the Chinese people while simultaneously living in various fears. One of the CCP's current fears is the massive outflow of capital. For China's wealthy and middle class, the biggest anxiety is the unprecedented rate at which the value of cash will depreciate. They have witnessed the bursting of China's domestic real estate bubble in recent years, with the economic outlook mired in deflation and showing no signs of improvement. Worst of all, the Xi Jinping government is accelerating its leftward shift in political direction, pushing for policies to narrow the wealth gap. All of this has plunged China's wealthy and middle classes into severe anxiety. What to do? Where should the funds flow? In recent years, the resilient growth of the US economy, especially the rapid development of the US high-tech AI industry, and the continuous rise in the stock market has attracted a large amount of private capital from China. Whether it's ordinary retail investors snapping up US stock funds or high net worth individuals transferring assets through various covert channels, the direction is remarkably consistent towards US stocks, the US dollar, and the US market. Wealthy individuals are circumventing capital controls through a vast underground network, transferring huge sums of private wealth overseas every year. According to the latest quantitative estimates from the Institute of International Finance, IIF, by 2025 alone, Chinese households, financial institutions, and multinational corporations have secretly transferred a record $807 billion overseas. According to Beijing government regulations, Chinese citizens can only remit $50,000 overseas annually, while immigrants only have one opportunity to transfer assets. The anxiety of the wealthy and middle class has spawned a massive underground industry specifically designed to circumvent official capital controls. In fact, the true scale of illegal capital outflows cannot be accurately measured. To circumvent the official annual limit of $50,000, a massive multifunctional underground cross-border financial gray market continues to operate at full speed. The first channel is the compliant route, the QDII quota. This compliant route is currently extremely competitive. QDII, Qualified Domestic Institutional Investor Funds, are the main springboard for ordinary people to legally buy US stocks. The total QDII quota for 2025 was $170.8 billion. In the second quarter of 2026, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, SAFE, approved a total QDII quota of $176.169 billion. Although an additional $5.3 billion in quotas was added to 78 financial institutions in late March 2026, it was quickly exhausted in the face of surging demand for overseas investment. From 2025 to 2026, the influx of funds chasing the Nasdaq 100 and S&P 500 was so rapid and massive that the quotas allocated by the State Administration of Foreign Exchange were quickly exhausted. Secondly, offshore and shadow channels, i.e. using overseas brokers. Some high net worth individuals and institutions transfer assets overseas through cross-border offshore accounts, overseas brokers, and Hong Kong intermediaries to buy US stocks. This type of channel is massive. Because it operates in a gray area, it has become a key target for Beijing's regulatory crackdown. It's estimated that this portion of funds may reach hundreds of billions of USD. Thirdly, underground banks plus cryptocurrencies. This is the most covert channel. The practice of transferring funds through underground banks has been common in China for some time. In a 2021 case reported by Chinese state media in Gansu, the authorities uncovered an underground bank with assets totaling 75.6 billion yuan. In recent years, this channel has been technologically upgraded. Domestic buyers pay RMB to the underground bank, which then releases an equivalent amount of USDT on the blockchain. The USDT stablecoin acts as a networked offshore dollar. Buyers then exchange the USDT for USD overseas to buy US stocks, US real estate, or even pay tuition fees. Throughout the process, the RMB doesn't leave China and the dollar doesn't leave the US, using cryptocurrency to hedge the accounts on both sides. Fourth, fictitious trade. Many companies with import and export businesses have long used letters of credit in international trade to secretly smuggle capital. Companies manipulate import contracts that require overseas settlement and even forge transactions. Specifically, they inflate the value of imported goods and persuade overseas suppliers to transfer excess funds to offshore accounts. This is estimated to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Fifth, cross-border consumer refunds. Some Chinese use cross-border consumer refund mechanisms to transfer funds. They purchase overpriced goods from overseas merchants using mainland Chinese bank accounts and then cancel the transactions. The refunds are settled outside the formal banking system, ultimately allowing the funds to flow overseas. Sixth, smuggling cash across borders. This is the simplest method. Cash is hidden in suitcases, vehicles, or boats and transported to Hong Kong or Macau. Some also recruit those in mainland China who haven't used their annual $50,000 foreign exchange quota, pooling quotas from large groups to seemingly legitimately transfer funds overseas. For the Chinese economy, the continuous outflow of private capital is fatal, hence the increasingly close attention from the authorities. The recent crackdown on overseas brokers suspected of assisting domestic clients in conducting overseas security transactions indicates that regulators are intensifying their monitoring of cross-border capital flows. In 2025-26, China issued fines totaling approximately $330 million to cross-border securities firms, involving tiger brokers Futu and Changchao among others, demanding the cleanup of illegal accounts and tightening controls on QDII accounts going overseas. Regulatory plugging will significantly increase the cost of capital outflow. This is a major obstacle to the outflow of Chinese private capital. Many ordinary Chinese citizens don't understand the fundamental reasons behind the CCP's tightening of passport controls. They simply feel that life is becoming increasingly difficult. Going abroad to work was originally one of the options available to people facing economic hardship. Why do I always advise poor people to go abroad whenever they have the opportunity? It's not because the grass is always greener on the other side, but because for ordinary people without savings, resources, or connections, going abroad is truly the lowest cost and fastest way to change their fate. In China, those of us at the bottom of society work our hardest, and we might only earn a few thousand yuan a month. After rent, food, and social obligations, you'll barely have any money left at the end of the year. Buying a house, a car, or providing a good life for your family is incredibly difficult. The effort and reward are completely disproportionate. However, with stricter passport regulations and changes in the international environment, the path to working abroad is becoming increasingly narrow. For many Chinese people already struggling, this is adding insult to injury. Have you noticed that going abroad has become increasingly difficult? It's no longer a question of whether you want to go abroad, but whether you can actually go. You'll understand after watching the following. Since the second half of this year, the requirements for foreign personnel have been getting higher and higher. Take New Zealand as an example. Policies have tightened, requiring social security and English proficiency. Japan and Singapore's open work visa program for ordinary Southeast Asian workers has significantly reduced the number of jobs available to Chinese nationals. Listen up if you still want to work abroad. It's not the same as before. Things have changed. Even countries like Singapore, Japan, and South Korea, which used to be easy to go to, are now very competitive. Don't even mention you're 50, even if you're 45. If you don't have any skills, whether you can find a job abroad is a question mark. My conclusion is that there are too many people and not enough jobs. That's the current situation for going abroad. Do you agree? The sky is falling, high-end consumption is restricted, and they really aren't issuing passports anymore. So many people are in debt and they just want to go abroad and earn some money and turn their lives around. So now they're not even issuing passports anymore. Actually, this policy has been in effect since May of this year. Some people say they've already been sentenced and their judgment states they're not allowed to leave the country, but they've already obtained passports and many have even already gone abroad. That's because the courts weren't connected to the immigration system before. Now they're gradually being connected, and many fans have reported that they can't get passports anymore. If you're planning to go abroad, quickly check if your area is connected to the system and if you can still apply. At the same time, the CCP state media is busy exaggerating the hardships of working abroad, portraying it as similar to stories of people living in dire straits overseas. This is one of the real predicaments for Chinese people, with all sorts of misleading information. In an era of economic downturn, the CCP's message to the Chinese people is that even if China isn't doing well, it's still better than the US. Starting in late 2025, a term began circulating widely on Chinese social media and official media, the killing line. This refers to the extreme financial vulnerability of many middle-class or working-class families in the US. They fear that sudden misfortunes such as unemployment or serious illness could cause their standard of living to plummet below the basic survival line, with little chance of recovery due to the lack of social safety nets. This led many Chinese netizens, especially the little pinks, to suddenly realize that America is hell. A hell for the middle class, the unfortunate, and those suffering unexpected blows. These media outlets tell Chinese people that things are different in China. The CCP provides its citizens with a comprehensive safety net and a mechanism to prevent them from falling back into poverty. How fortunate you are to live in China. Going abroad to work, you think it's about earning foreign exchange and changing your fate. You think it's an easy way to earn $2,800 to $4,500 a month. In reality, without education, skills, or proficiency in a foreign language, most people can only earn between 1,400 and 2,000 yuan a month. You might earn a little more money, but the price is the loss of security, freedom, and companionship. Language barriers lead to exclusion, cultural differences make integration difficult, and medical care is hard to guarantee when sick or injured. Don't believe the promises made by some agencies. Earning high salaries abroad isn't as easy as it seems. The hardships of working abroad are beyond your imagination. Be cautious when considering working abroad. That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.